Thank you. Yes, so here we can look at, what obstacles there are to opening our heart to cultivating that heart of loving kindness, the good heart, and so forth, heart of compassion. And this is why we start, like last time at the beginning, talking about getting a sense of even regard, even mindedness towards all beings, seeing that in what ways we're all equal, seeing that we're like all in the same boat of samsara, struggling in this ocean of being tossed around. And so in terms of, just to recap on this, sort of thinking about cultivating this even regard, that even mind that holds all beings equal, in that none of us want to suffer and we all want to be happy, in that we are all equal. Many ways we're different, in that we're all equal. But the reason that we call to mind the ways we're equal is so that we can cut across, or we could start with reflecting on what are the reasons for the differences of our feelings towards others. So it might be a feeling of arrogance, of pride, oh, you're a mere ant down there somewhere, nothing to do with me. And, so pride could be, or some sort of belligerence, or sense of, basically it all comes down to our self-cherishing mind that's always looking after me and mine, which is based on grasping at this self that doesn't exist anyway, so a totally deluded state of mind. This concept of self, we exist, but our concept of ourself, we need to check up if that exists. And so looking at the reasons of, why is it that I put people separate? Like last time I was talking about, I hear it was an Australian, and so then I prick up my ears, something happened overseas to an Australian, could have happened to any other nationality. And it's not that I don't pick up my ears, but maybe not as quickly, it's just like, it's Australian because I identify as an Australian, or I identify as a woman, or whatever, So all of these things can lead to differences. So, and then I have to say, well, there are valid reasons why to hold each other's dear. And then we looked at, the kindness of other sentient beings. Every sentient being's been our mother, so they're not like so separate after all. So, and reminding us selves so that we all want to be happy. Yes, every single sentient being. So no matter what weird and wonderful things people are doing, weird and wonderful comes from us. It's not from them. There's some logic to them. But whatever they're doing, they're just like us, seeking happiness, seeking pleasure, seeking comfort, however we want to say, and to avoid any slightest discomfort, any slight aspect of suffering. How we can get quickly annoyed, having pain or discomfort or so forth. This is, we have this divine right to live on a fluffy white cloud somewhere. I don't know. It's called a doona, isn't it? Fluffy white cloud. I'm sure they use that advertisement. And so then also looking at the impermanent nature of our relationships. And I guess we didn't address that so much last time, but the fact that, I can have my childhood friends, my best friend. I had a new best friend every week, or if I didn't, my mother would say, don't hang out with that one. So it's like, why not? They got into trouble. Okay. But they're my friend, but we had these friends that I wouldn't even know if they're alive today. So they've become completely estranged from my life today. Yeah. So we're all in that situation. Or people that we dislike, and then we have maybe an initial dislike towards, and then over time they become our besties, or, you know, so that we look how all of this changes all the time in this life. So we can rationalize for this life, but then we can also say, well, if I've had beginningless past lives, all these relationships have changed throughout all those lives. So, the one I'm having the neighbor dispute with over the fence, who I wish wasn't living next door to me, may have been my mother in a past, well, has been my mother in a past life, but, it may have last time been my mother. And so would I treat my mother like that? No. So we look at different ways to rationalize that. Relationships, just like everything else, is in the nature of change. And it's no more dramatically displayed as is intimate relationships, particularly the longer people live. And so, it's sort of like people get into a relationship, maybe they renovate the house and then they split up because of the struggle. I shouldn't say that. You're not renovating, are you? Good. I've got to be careful what you say, But they do. It's just like we created the dream home and then we split. Okay. They created a dream home for someone else, I guess. People, it's just the nature of relationships. They're subject to change constantly. Even the friends that we have as our long-term friends, there may be the days on which, we prefer not to have anything to do with them. But then we realise they're a long-term friend. And so I've got to work that through and use some reasoning and pick up the phone and whatever. So we reflect like that. So taking into consideration the multiple lives that we've had, the different relationships that we have. So no point in holding tightly to, yes, this is my friend and family, and I don't even take care of anyone else. So yes, they are, and of course take care of them. But know that everything's subject to change. People die, people go out of our lives, so forth. And if we continue to place people in these categories, particularly people, we know for ourselves, if someone places you in a category and you experience being in that category, you know what I mean? It's just like there's this little person going, that's not me, or that's not all me, or whatever. So we don't like it. So, not to box people into this category, that category, the other category. And so therefore, if we do that, it's like we're closing our mind to possibilities. And when I say people, I should extend that out to all sentient beings, So there are a lot of ants on the labyrinth. And when you start being very careful to avoid them as you're walking, fortunately very slowly, because you're doing a meditation, the relationship changes. You take notice. And then instead of when people, okay, now we're coming back to people because it's usually people. When we feel aggravated by someone, or say they've been angry at us and we just want to fume back at them, it never does any good. It only ever escalates. I've never seen it do anything but escalate. However, we can remind ourselves of the appropriateness of, maybe we're not ready for the affectionate love yet, but at least have a compassion for their suffering. Because if they're angry or hostile or so forth, they're going through some form of suffering. And we talked about last time about compassion and the different types of compassion that can be quite limited. But here it's what we're wanting to cultivate is that towards all beings, in the sense of not wanting them to suffer. So I don't want you to suffer your anger, we could say, right? Because, hey, it's not helping you. It's certainly not helping me. So it's a win-win. If we're logical and intelligent, it's a win-win. they're less angry, then your interactions are going to be less angry. But also having compassion that if I've had beginningless past lives, I've been in every single realm of existence there is. I've done everything. Anger. You want to see when I was angry, you know? So we've killed, we've raped, we've been angry, we've been jealous, we've been full of arrogance, whatever. We've done it all. We've been all. So who am I to say, criticize someone else's behavior? Of course, there are situations where we need to take responsibility. This is what we're working towards in this great Bodhichitta development. Take responsibility, and where we can, those of us who've taken bodhisattva vows, it says if you can prevent someone creating negative karma, we could add continuing to create negative karma. If we can skillfully intervene, do. But we have to use our wisdom wing as well. Can I skillfully intervene? A friend of mine came, a work colleague way back, and she came to work incredibly distressed. Her brother had been in Hyde Park in Sydney, and there was two people fighting. I think there was some knife or something attached to that fight. So he intervened to stop it because it was a man beating up on this woman, and he got killed. Nothing wrong with a compassionate heart, but you don't know. You've got to do your, risk assessment. Ring the police. Hopefully they get them in time. So we need to do that. And, look at the fact that if I'm reacting habitually out of anger or aversion or desirous attachment, inappropriate, so forth, then I have to look at, rather than getting frustrated with someone else not meeting my needs or creating problems for me, because it's all their fault, we have to look at, okay, what's that affliction in my own mind, to be able to identify it in my own mind. Very early on, when I started on the Buddhist path, someone who'd been a friend who'd been around the Dharma longer said, my teacher says, when you're by yourself, look at your own mind. And when you're with others, look at what you say and do, your speech and actions. So it's very useful. Be mindful. And and extending that, that heart of compassion, because if you think about it, we have the best possible conditions to cultivate these minds of love, compassion, taking that sense of universal responsibility, bodhicitta, because we are born human. And as humans, we know suffering. We don't want to know suffering, but we know what it is to suffer all sorts of ways. But we all want to be happy. So we've got that. But we also know it's possible. And as Dharma students, followers, we know it's possible because here we are to, okay, how can I do this thing? How can I transform my mind? We're willing and able. We've got the best possible conditions, right? And so just recognizing that others who don't have those opportunities, or maybe who do have those opportunities, that haven't met those opportunities yet, and thinking, well, I'm caught up in similar situations to them. I know what that suffering is like. Yeah. So, we're all experiencing different forms of suffering. And we all have the potential to experience more. It's just the way of life, as Buddha gave the teachings of the Four Truths. It's just life is in the nature of suffering. Our non-Buddhist friends say, you're such a morbid life. You talk about suffering, you talk about death. No, we just talk about reality. We're not glossing. So, and then over time, we watch, once we're working on our mind and see that attachment, hostility to others in decrease, we still are differentiating on, yeah, you're off the Christmas list, you're not on my, friendship circle, you're not in my circle, whatever, unfriend you. So I still have my unfriends and my friends and so forth, but more a sense of even regard is gradually growing more and more. The more we soften our heart, the more we orient ourselves towards others and contemplate in this way. So when we get more experience of these different components, then we come back to the 7-point cause and result we were looking at last time, to broaden our love, to broaden our compassion. So again, as we started last time, we have this even regard, even mindedness. That is the foundation. That the idea of that is that when we have that state of mind is opposite to the state that's partial. So it's an impartial state of mind that has even regard towards all beings, not excluding anyone. Now, I don't know the 8.6 billion, however many humans we are. I don't even know however many humans we are. I mean, wouldn't that be tragic if I said, I don't know how many humans I share? That's significant. For saying how many humans there are in the world, we all go, well, I don't either, actually. I don't know them all individually, but I know what it is to have a human existence, and the news will tell me there's quite a variety of human realities happening all the time, or situations happening all the time. So we can't, pretend it's not happening. In fact, it's quite good to, last week we ended up with the 4 immeasurables, and I was talking about the ones about compassion, because they're sort of like one, well, we haven't got to that yet. Anyway, the one about compassion in particular, it's very, and equanimity, this even regard, is actually to take on board the things that we hear in the news. So we do take that individual or that group of people, if it's like all the people in Gaza or all the people in Ukraine, many other places we can think of, and think, wow, so we can be specific about the sorts of sufferings we wish beings to be free of. So we make it personal. So we say that having this even regard is a foundation, but it's also as a result more and more of cultivating the heart of love and compassion. So the more that we do that, the more even regard we have for more beings. And so, as we looked at last time, first of all, seeing all beings as our mothers, in terms of, in every life, I've had a mother, I've had countless mothers. My mother of this life has been my mother many times previously. A human mother, but a chicken mother, or ant mother, or whatever mother, let alone all the other beings, because if I've had beginningless past lives, it's countless, and there's countless sentient beings, right? They've all been my mother. So we regard them as my dear mother. And if you go around to the cockroach and say, hi, mum, your life is transformed. your relationship with that cockroach is transformed. You might have to still escort it from the house. You can do it with mantras and blessed water and holy images outside a container that you take them outside with and come back in, out again, come back in. There you go out again. Maybe we think of our cockroaches like a naughty dog that wants to go in and out the house all the time. Naughty cockroach. It's too cold for cockroaches now, isn't it? Or we still have them. I don't know. Anyway, so in each and every life, remembering the kindness. So we talked about this at length last time. The kindness of our mother, or all the people who played a mothering pastoral role in our life, and replicate that by each and every other sentient being. We'll never get to the bottom of the kindness that we have received. And that's a very good way to cut across our poor pity me, or, nothing good ever happens to me. I'm just like, wow, open your eyes. And then, of course, the kindness when they haven't even been our mother, when they've provided food, clothing, even died for us. The insects in the ground. Even we have our organic vegetables. Don't believe it hasn't caused the life of some insect. And so forth. We just go on, remembering the kindness of all the sentient beings when they've been our mother, when they haven't been our mother. And then it's sort of like, well, how do I go about repaying that kindness to each and every sentient being? How do I do that? Like, as I mentioned last time with when my mother was, when I was caring for her the last year of her life, and she said, "Oh dear, I'm taking you away from your career." I said, "Mum, you are my career. You're my job, right? I mean, believe me, this is my career. This is my job, caring for people, especially mothers." When I spoke to Geshe Sampton at VI, straight away he's like, "Oh, of course you've got to go and look after your mother. That's what you do, because the importance of the mother." And in my mind, I was like, I could never repay the kindness just of that one, because, when you've done a meditation on the kindness of just that one mother, you never get to the bottom of that. You never get, even they've passed away, you still never get to the bottom. So on that basis, we develop that sense of affection, closeness for all beings. The idea that we're subsequently, responding with love and compassion. So seeing all beings as our mothers, remembering their kindness, wishing to repay their kindness. And so that arouses that heart of loving kindness. As soon as you reflect on all the kindnesses all these sentient beings have invested in me, you naturally feel affectionate love towards them. And so we have to go slowly, don't we? It's a Dalai Lama says, widening the circle of love. Start with the friends and family, those we already feel dear to, and then we extend that out to we say strangers, neutral ones, the ones that we encounter in daily life, but we neither hold them as a friend or an enemy. And then gradually, as the Dalai Lama says, booster techniques to include those ones we have difficulty with. Right. So that those ones, and then so they're actual specific beings, usually human in our case, and then we extend that out to each and every other sentient being with a sense of that love from our heart going towards their heart. And we have many, many meditation techniques for that to gradually extend that out. So there's a real sense of heart connection. So it's not looking at what their body looks like or how they treat me. It's just saying, no, here is another sentient being. And if nothing else, why? Because they have Buddha nature. They have a mind. Every being that has a mind has Buddha nature. So is a potential Buddha. You don't even know if they may be a Buddha already. Just testing you out. No, they, just like Arya Sangha with Maitreya and the dog. He saw a dog. He saw maggots. Right? He didn't know that was Maitreya Buddha until he did. We just never know. So cultivating that affectionate love, which, as we said last week, the definition is that is, may you have happiness and the causes of happiness. So we have to know what sort of love it is that we're talking about. That, okay, so yeah, we need to define in this context and look at it from all different angles and so forth, and the steps we need to develop that love. What does equal love for all beings depend on? Depends on seeing everyone as equal, that everyone has been kind to us. What else? That everyone doesn't want to suffer. So our goal here is to become a Buddha. So here we're talking about developing the qualities of a Buddha on the path, the great Mahayana path. Maha means great, yana, vehicle. One of my friends in California I think it was Land and Murder's Buddha. They had bumper stickers for their car. My other vehicle is Mahayana. Yeah. So if my job's to be a Buddha and I want to have even regard, then I'm not being critical, judgmental of others. I only wish to be of benefit to others. That's a Buddha's job, just to be of benefit. How can I help? And so then I need to create the causes for that. So in addition to developing the mind of affectionate love, we also need to know, well, what are the opposing factors to love? So we can identify when we're not doing the right thing. What is it I need to remedy in my own mind so I can cultivate this love? So what sort of opposing factors to love would we have? Attachment. Desirous attachment, like greed, or addiction, whichever way it goes, yeah. And anger, hatred, the mind of revenge, ill will, so forth. So we need to be able to identify those, and also to have the conviction that love can actually overpower those states of mind. Right? And so that we can be rid of them. So then we need to understand how, love can get rid of those. So particularly when it comes to something like anger, there's such a readiness of anger in the world. It's like, maybe it's not even under the surface, ready to rise. It's just, there's so much of it, isn't there, in the world? And so this requires us not just to identify it in ourselves, but we have to make that courageous choice, is what being a bodhisattva in training is, the mind of courage that says, I'm going to be out of step with society. I'm not going to put those nasty comments online. Someone was talking the other day, their street is where the Victoria Park Station, isn't it? Where they're doing all that work. They're doing the work on the railway line. And you can only go one way in their street. And they've set up I don't know if it's just for the street or for the area, like a social media page group to help each other out with, well, this is how I get to, because they're jackhammering and whatever. Have you tried noiseless headphones? Have you tried, so it's to help each other out, which is a lovely thing, right? And then one of the neighbors put up, oh, I get really upset when people, like, you're not supposed to go down there and it's blocked off, and people do it. And somebody else posted, now I know it upsets you, I'm going to do it more. I was like, for real? This is a support group? Yeah. It's quite shocking, really.
I felt I had the right.
Well, I was just joking. Yeah. But I always think it wouldn't come as a thought bubble if it wasn't there in your mind. It would not arise. It would not arise. Could you think of Dalai Lama saying that? Yeah. So, on the other hand, if we cultivate this sense of love and be reminded that we can overcome anger, we can overcome all the afflictions, as the Dalai Lama says, if every child learns to meditate at an early age within one generation. He says we will have world peace if that, hypothetically, we can have world peace in one generation. It is possible. It's that possible. But do we think it's possible? Do we envision it happening in one generation? No. Just ask a younger generation what they think. Definitely not. But we have to do it. That's the whole point. We have to do it. And also, we need to think about, well, what's the purpose of developing love? What are we going to do with this love? What are we going to do with it once we develop it? So that implies knowing the benefits. So we look at the benefits of developing love. If we look at all the Mahayana scriptures or the sutras or the commentaries and so forth, where does it all start with? It all starts with the mind of Bodhichitta. Just like when we, at the beginning, said the refuge and Bodhichitta prayer, I know it was all in Tibetan, but the Bodhichitta, may I become a Buddha in order to, fulfill the welfare of all sentient beings. I can't quite do that yet by a long shot. So, may I become a Buddha for the benefit of others. So this love is for the benefit of others, not for our own sake. And as we say, the love that it says, may you have happiness and the causes of happiness. And then we think that, if we cultivate that state of mind, everyone benefits. We benefit. Everyone else benefits around us. And we create the causes for having excellent rebirths lifetime after lifetime. So we've done it before. Here we are. We've got all the conditions. We have what is called a precious human rebirth. All the perfect conditions. We've met the Dharma. We're able to engage with that. We're interested to engage in that. We have every opportunity. I mean, we have the most excellent of the excellent conditions. We're in a place that has total freedom. We live in a place that has total freedom of religion or not, right? It's a right to practice the faith, and we have everything available to us. I mean, just looking at Buddhism, we have every single tradition that exists, it would seem, alive and well in this very country, in this very city, I think. So we don't have to go far, right? And if we look at all the great beings of the past and how they have cultivated that affectionate regard for others towards limitless beings, and that's the whole focus here of having that mind plus the mind of compassion. So here these steps are interchangeable. It said that, it's not that, we have to develop the affectionate love first and then you will develop the compassion. So you can develop the compassion first. Great compassion, as we said, wishing all beings to be free of suffering and the causes of suffering. So we can develop, so either which one, they go hand in hand. That's what we're saying, because the two encompass the Four Noble Truths, right? They're totally interconnected. So also just mentioning, we need to have confidence in the teachings. Otherwise, we won't even start this whole process in the first place. And seeing we're still here, and those of us who have been coming along every Sunday, mostly, for a long period of time, we're up to module 10. I think probably don't need convincing, right? But convincing that the teachings are logical. It's not like they're mysterious. There's no such thing as, that's God's mystery, which I've heard. It's not for us to talk about. No, it's not God's mystery. Everything, it is true, everything that can be known, everything that can be cognized, everything that exists is known by a Buddha, right? Not known by me. Of course, there's a lot of stuff we don't know. But that we look at the teachings in terms of their logic, the reasoning, that is very good. This is why the Dalai Lama loves having those interactions with the mind scientists and the physicists and everyone, because it's based on logic, it's based on reasoning. So as the Buddha said, if you can find anything that I have said, don't follow me just because I said it. Don't believe it just because I said it. And if you can find anything, if you can prove it wrong, chuck it out. The Dalai Lama had no qualms about chucking out Tibet's flat earth policy, well, not policy really, belief, when he had his telescope and said, can't be right. Well, my experience can't be right. His looking through a telescope must be very different to mine. Maybe he was sat there day after day after day. He must have day after day after day, looking to see a trajectory. Yeah. So then they stopped teaching about flat earth. It was wrong. They were just isolated from the rest of the world. They were caught up with that long before Copernicus, all of it. Is it Galileo? Copernicus. Galileo. So there's a lot we have to think about here, isn't there? So this mind of great compassion, and this is where His Holiness the Dalai Lama has said, for this world today, this is the thing that's most needed in the world is compassion. Compassion. We have all of the, quotes, Lama Zopa Rinpoche, live with compassion, die with compassion, work with compassion, meditate with compassion. When problems come, compassion. So compassion, compassion, compassion. So we want this unconditional, or as far as we can get to, close to unconditional love. I say that because one of my teachers who says this, you cannot have such a thing as unconditional love while you're in samsara, but we know what we mean. Let's say even affectionate love and great compassion. So the great compassion is not just for my friends and family. Again, it's gone beyond that on the basis of having developed the mind of equanimity. So it's compassion toward each and every sentient being, having that mind that, can I be of help? Can I be of help? Can I be of help? How can I help? That's the mind of compassion, just as all the great beings of the past have done. Lama Zopa Rinpoche, Geshe Zopa talking about being going up to Lao Do with Lama Zopa Rinpoche, and they were coming back down, and let's just say Lama Zopa Rinpoche puts everything down to the wire in terms of timing. And so they'd be coming down, they'd be walking down, and they had so much time to get the plane out. But every time they stopped, Rinpoche would stop, do a puja for an ant or some other insect along the way. And then the monks were feeling really exhausted and said, please, no more ants appear on the path, please. We just want to get there. Know the feeling. But this just heart of compassion oozing with bodhicitta cannot help. This is Lama Zopa Rinpoche for sure. So thinking about that and thinking on that basis, naturally we develop a sense of universal responsibility or special responsibility. Dalai Lama likes to call it universal responsibility and taking responsibility for all beings. It's an extraordinary, it's called an extraordinary intention, special intention, wishing, taking, not just wishing for all beings to be free of suffering and have every happiness, but saying, I'm responsible for that. And this, the Greta Thunbergs of the world, and I'm always amazed by young people that you get people like I've met 8-year-olds who've set up an organization to help. It's like, really? And like with the domestic situation, domestic violence escalation, it was a young, well, she wasn't that young. I think she 30, who set up another sort of organization in that space. And I was like, this is what the Dalai Lama said, young people, this is your century, anyone under 30, because it's like having the guts to get out there and do it. I think it's wonderful. And there's so many examples now. Very different when I was 8-year-old, 9-year-old, 10-year-old, even. Maybe by the time I was 15 or 16, I would have done, could have done, but I didn't. It was much later. So that sense of, and this we can do in our everyday life. Someone should, I'll do it. It's not like, well, I did it last week, it's your turn. No, just do these things that need to be done. If we have the courage to be able to skillfully, as I said, confront someone who's being abusive to someone else, or whatever it is, to skillfully do that, do it. It's not okay. I was in a meeting one time. It was a committee meeting. Nothing to do with Dharma or anything like that. It was a meeting. And someone said something nasty to the chair. And someone else who was there said, and I thought, this was great. She said, ouch, that hurt me. And I thought, isn't that great? There's many ways of doing this. I felt that. Find our ways of being universally responsible, because you might say, well, I'm not about to set up some worldwide campaign anytime soon, but I can be an advocate in whatever ways. I can be an advocate. What are we called these days? Influencers. We can influence others. We're all influencers, by the way. And then the finality of that is coming to a point when we're able to see how, the Buddhist path, and particularly this Mahayana, the Great Scope Mahayana path, culminates in the enlightenment of a Buddha, that it allows us to fulfill that responsibility. Then we're ready to generate that mind of bodhicitta. Okay, I'm going to make that commitment. And so then we have the two aspects of the mind of bodhicitta, the aspiring one, yes, which is what we say in all our prayers, may I become a Buddha for the benefit of all beings, may I become a Buddha. And then we won't be looking at that today, the engaging one, which is when we take vows and engage in the six perfections. So that's coming up subsequently. Questions, comments? So the other instruction, main instruction for our transforming our mind practice, if you like, is the meditation on equalizing and exchanging self with others. So we've already talked about this equalizing. So we can say we've done that, say, hypothetically, we've done that step. We know what, we're familiarized with what that step is. So it's the same in either one of these. So this equalizing, exchanging self with others was pretty much most people associate that with Shantideva in the Bodhisattva's way of life, and where he elaborates on that process of equalizing, exchanging self with others. And then Lama Tsongkhapa subsequently came along and incorporated that within the 7-point cause and effect. So the next steps come after you've generated love, affectionate love, and compassion. So you haven't yet got the universal responsibility, but you had that. So equalizing, exchanging self with others. And then we look at the disadvantages of cherishing myself, just looking at myself, focusing on myself. Because it's based on this erroneous belief in this inherently self-existent me, who's the most important one in the whole world. Even we don't say that to ourselves, we still grasp at this sense of me. See, I go here every single time. You hurt me. What me? What me is there? Which bit did you hurt? You know, whatever. So because it's based on ignorance, that confusion, mistaken misconceptions, then that propels us again lifetime into lifetime of having a suffering existence in this, what we call samsara. The prison of samsara, it's called. So samsara is not a place, it's a state of mind, right? So the opposite to that is nirvana, which is also a state of mind, where we have completely purified from our mind all those afflictive states of mind, all those delusions, right? That we can think about like that. Because where has this self-cherishing attitude got me? It's got me lifetime after lifetime in all these realms of samsaric existence, cycling through all sorts of different sufferings and so forth, in all these different realms, the 6 realms of existence, again and again and again and again. So that's why I take as my working hypothesis that, you know, when a baby's born and cries, I go, oh no, I've done it again. I'm back in samsara. I didn't mean to come here. Don't tell parents that.
I reckon there's some truth in that.
No, there's some medical advice about that. Will contradict that. It's supposed to be, I was in the nice womb and then I'm out here in the world. Is that right? Is that what they say in medical school? No,
well, yeah, it's a big shock.
It's a big shock.
A big change.
Yeah.
Oh no, I meant to be born in the Pure Land. Yeah, the Buddha never said that. But it's kept me locked in this ignorance of grasping at a self, continuously obsessed by my problems, what the world's doing to me, not what I'm doing for the world. And that prevents us from accessing the opportunities to progress on the path, to getting closer towards enlightenment, because we're caught up in the negativity, right? Our mind is, anytime we are caught up in negativity, we know how debilitating that is. It's sort of like, why do we keep doing it to ourselves? We give ourselves a hard time with all our afflictions, but we don't think we're giving ourselves a hard time. We think that we can't help it, but we can help it. We have a choice to let them hijack us and give us an awful day, or to say, stop, I've had enough of you, no more, kick them out. Apply these. I know it's not easy to kick them out just like that, but to apply these methods, to recognize this is an erroneous state of mind. It only ever has got me into trouble, and it only ever will. And that stops us, those states of mind stop us achieving any realizations whatsoever. So how can we progress? It also prevents us fully understanding and practicing the Dharma. So for example, we know that the time of death is uncertain, isn't it? We all know that. Do we live as if the time of death is uncertain, as if I could die in the next minute, second? Why wait a minute? As Lama, yes, you would say, if you could see what I see, you wouldn't sleep at night. Right? Suffering existences. So we live life, let's say, even as wonderful Dharma students, still there's that being caught up with worldly stuff. So the Buddha didn't say give everything up, but it's giving up our attachment to that as being the source of our happiness. That's what you were talking about before, attachment. So it prevents us from understanding the Dharma in terms of understanding it just like Milarepa, who, when he went, as he said, in horror of the uncertainty of the time of death, I took to the cave. No, I meditated on the uncertainty of time. Now all fear is done, gone. So we can't all go to the cave, so to speak, even the Hilton cave. However, we can look at how am I living my life as if, how would I live my life differently if I really believed that I will not be here tomorrow? Let's say tomorrow. We could say tonight. We could say in an hour's time. But if we say tomorrow, it sort of gives us a bit more time to fix a few things, isn't it? And this self-cherishing hasn't allowed me even to enjoy temporal happiness because it's craving for more. Like my friends who suffered such a dilemma of, having this, they both had very cushy jobs. In other words, they were earning a lot of money, is what I mean. I don't know if their jobs were cushy, but they were earning a lot of money. And they had an apartment, so a couple, they had an apartment, and then they bought an apartment for the kids in the same building, a few floors below, not next door. And it was like, we're still in too high a tax bracket. We'll have to get a yacht. They didn't even sail. It's all about the tax bracket. Such a dilemma to have. Got all one more problem on top of the other. You get caught up in it. And you can't even enjoy it. And this self-cherishing attitude, just as it has caused all these afflictions to arise in the past, will continue to do that this life, future lives, if I don't do something about it. So we're looking at the disadvantages of self-cherishing. And the fact that it changes us into enemies, as going from helpful other people-oriented living beings, we turn them into enemies, or we turn others into enemies that destroy us, or even objects into enemies that destroy us. So it's like everyone becomes your enemy, even your friends and family. I've heard so many people talk about their, family or families at the time when someone's dying, fighting over property or money or something useless like that. I mean, it's not useless, but it's not the end game. Even our body becomes our enemy as we age. Possessions and so forth. So it's just like, just get rid of them, then it won't be a burden. Get rid of our attachment to them, at least. So because of this self-cherishing mind, this ignorance, we create a lot of negative karma, being caught up in worldly concerns. When we really don't want to be, here we make these strong aspirations to, follow the Mahayana path, become a Buddha, and yet we do get caught up. We get jealous of those who have even the slightest thing. What's the opposite? What's the antidote to jealousy? Rejoice. Fantastic. Fantastic. One time I was looking for a place to live, and my dear friend who came with me while I was looking for a place to live, and she said, and I was thinking about moving into that place. I did not move into that place, by the way. But she looked at it and went, I'm jealous. Now, I was a renter. She owned a house. I mean, even logically, it's not logical, is it? And I thought, you're my friend and you're jealous that it really deflates you. So don't say that to anyone. Do not say, I'm jealous of you when something wonderful happens. Just say, fantastic. That's great. Rejoicing. Or, I'm proud of being rich or powerful, or, people notice me. The praise, the 8 worldly concerns. Put others down as being my enemies, break up my relationships because I'm suffering. But I was very unskillful one time. I was in a relationship. I don't have to worry about that now. No. I mean, many relationships. I mean, more relationships now than I was before. Oh, yes. My partner said, we need to talk about the problems going on. Problems? With all the problems in the world, you want to talk about problems? Yeah. Surprisingly enough, that relationship didn't last. And I was the one at fault. But then we don't get along with others. And so those are our friends, our family, teachers, everything, and we blame others for our problems. So they're all the disadvantages of this self-cherishing mind. The advantages of cherishing others, because here the exchanging self for others is turning ourselves out to regard others. Oh, there's something going on in the world. There's people suffering. There's beings suffering. So, here we have a quote from Shantideva, whatever action. So if I do not actually exchange my happiness for the suffering of others, I shall not attain the state of Buddhahood. And even in cyclic existence, I shall have no joy. Exchanging my happiness for the suffering of others. So when we're in the four immeasurable thoughts, we're saying, may you have happiness and the causes of happiness. And generally, we're visualizing giving them everything they desire and need. So maybe they need housing, medicine, food. If we can actually give those things and someone in need, please do. But if we at least wish for them to have all those things, or the comfort I have, or the health I have, everything I have. And then the mind that says, I will take on the suffering of others. We can't actually take on the suffering of others, but I'd be willing to. This is a very courageous state of mind. So this is the way to progress on the Bodhisattva path in this equalizing and exchanging self with others. So it says, whatever action you do, everything becomes the service of others. I'm eating my meal for the benefit of others. So when we, take refuge as Buddhists, as many of you have done, then we, before we eat, before we drink, we offer to others. We visualize offering to all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, to all our precious teachers, none of whom, by the way, need it. It's our practice of generosity and making offerings. And then we think of all the beings. I'm having my glass of water now. Being born in the Preta realm, who experiences water, it's said, like pus. So I can wish for them to experience it as delicious nectar and satisfying them and so forth. Right? So I'm not really necessarily changing anything in their experience. But what I'm doing, I'm changing my willingness to be able to be of greater and greater benefit to others, how I regard others by that. So that's what we're doing here. So that, cultivating this bodhisattva attitude, as Lama Zopa's book, opening the door to show the path to all sentient beings. And closing the toilet lid door to the lower realms, sealing it with a double vajra, solid. Everything we do, having a shower, doing our internal purification for the benefit of all beings. Because if I purify my mind, I can benefit you. I think a shower is probably a good time-out place, but how long's, you've got to have it 3 minutes? Yeah, you can have 3 minutes. Pure, intense purification. I think it's okay to do it in the swimming pool. Oh, no, that sounds terrible. No, that sounds wrong. We won't use that analogy. So all actions aimed at benefiting others, freeing others from whatever suffering, are causes for our happiness. So this is where we can easily check up in our own experience. If we do something for others, don't we feel good? Oh, I helped someone. Not arrogantly, oh, I helped someone, but that genuinely we're able to help someone. We feel good, yeah? Absolutely. Volunteering at the center. This center is for the benefit of all beings. So it's not like, but you have to be Buddhist to come here. I mean, maybe some people don't come because they've got some other faith, but it is for the benefit of all beings. So by our practice of, offering service to others, we create the possibility for this center, for the Dharma to flourish here and so forth, to continue, because it's a win-win situation, and then it's here for me when I want to be here. Right? So creating our service community. And then it said, even if I become useful for only one sentient being, the purpose of living is fulfilled. Even I'm caring for my parent, child, grandparent, whatever we're doing in life, I'm benefiting, educating. Educating is often a group of people, but even if it's just one being that I benefit through my existence, we fulfill this. So we don't have to let our mind be overwhelmed with, oh, all sentient beings. It's way too impossible. We have that one being in our mind and then visualize all the other sentient beings in exactly the same situation, getting exactly the same benefit. Like when we do our practices like of prostrations and we visualize every sentient being around us arising in human form and doing that practice along with us, or our Vajrasattva practice, whatever practices we're doing. So incorporate it all. Okay. Questions, comments? Yes.
Sometimes when someone's suffering or struggling, you were mentioning about this kind of first world problems, you know, and then, well, look, actually, so many people are undergoing suffering and having all difficulties. Sometimes that eases the feeling of suffering in someone. But I'm wondering, sometimes that person can feel even worse about themselves. Like, I know everyone has got it much worse than me, and I still feel bad. And I shouldn't feel bad.
Oh, I shouldn't. Yeah.
And it almost can contribute to their feeling.
And this is where, when we say all sentient beings, that doesn't exclude ourselves. It includes ourselves. Otherwise, this is one of the big traps we can fall into. It's, yes, we're orienting towards others, but it's ourselves as well, right? So my example of coming out of the shower in this house I was living in, going into the kitchen with my feet still wet and slipping over on the lino, and then, you know, very ouchy coccyx. And my first thought was, oh, may all beings who've ever experienced this pain be free of it immediately. Thankfully, that was my first thought, because my next thought was, can you take it away from me immediately? Like someone's going to take it away from you. Like they're not, but you know, that's my,
yes.
You know, because it's like, oh, because I hadn't included myself in the first round, first thought. So you include yourself in that first thought. So, yeah. And then guess what? I still had pain. But I felt better that I at least put it to some use. And then, of course, a few days later, I tripped over on a gutter and got more pain. It's like, okay. But you raise it is a very important point, because we can so easily feel like, oh, it's not to make us feel worse about our situation, because that's also the self-cherishing mind, right? Which is there, which we have. Welcome to the, you know, welcome to not just humanity, all beings in samsara. We all have. But just to notice that, and yeah, and see what we're able to do to counteract that sense of deprivation, shall we say, or being ignored. This is why, you know, this equalizing, exchanging self with others was taught in secret, because it was taught initially to those whose minds were ripe for that. So having the foundation of, you know, small scope, middle scope, and then this is very advanced practice. And it's like, if we don't do the rest, then it's like we jump in to the deep end of the pool and we don't know how to swim, so we're just going to drown. So this is why it was a sort of caution not to introduce it too soon to people. It's why a lot of the mind training as well, which we'll look at subsequently in another module, was also taught in secret, because it's like otherwise we miss a step, or maybe we miss quite a few steps, and it's just like, oh, I want to help everybody, and then we suffer what people call compassion burnout. But there's no such thing. Compassion can never burn out. And what we do is we conflate the mind of compassion with the mind of empathy. And empathy is a good thing, but if we over-empathize, so this is not about actually putting yourself in someone else's shoes and taking it all on and solving all their problems for them and so forth, because that's a bottomless pit, isn't it? But if we empower our minds with love, compassion, and also people also confuse compassion and bodhicitta as well. Bodhicitta is the result of developing all these states of mind. So compassion initially, even though, as Charles Darwin said, we're hardwired for it, it's not strong in our mind. So we have towards our family, friends, that's normal. And so then we gradually expand that out, gradually expand that out, gradually expand that out. And then the great compassion that's then able to hold all beings. So this is where you come back to incorporating this equalizing, exchanging self with others. So we paused after love and compassion. And so then we come to the mind of taking responsibility. Okay, I think I can step up. I'm not able to take on the whole responsibility for the whole world, but I can step up in my zone of influence or whatever I'm capable of, my capacity. Because if we step up and we realize, oh, I've got that capacity, well, maybe I can do a bit more. Maybe I can do a bit more. Maybe I can do a bit more. So that idea of, I guess, taking on the suffering of others, we've got to also remember we're not actually capable of taking on that immense of suffering. If we understand karma, we can't take on anyone else's karma. I'm not saying, well, we have suffering existences because of karma, but the negative variety, but we also have virtuous states of mind, which has also got us this precious human rebirth. So we can't take on someone's karma. We can't, as much as a parent wants to take on the suffering of their child, they know they can't. But if they could, they would. So this is the mind we're wishing to develop. If I could, I would. So I'm prepared to, hold you as in my heart, in my compassion. And we benefit from it. It's actually us who benefit from all of this, regardless of if anybody else benefits. Of course, we say, well, if nobody else benefits, why am I doing that? That's a valid question too. I think the power of love, if we're really cultivating that in our mind, is very powerful energy in the world, and beings respond to that. The power of compassion, beings respond to that. You see someone like the Dalai Lama, when he used to travel around more in particular, but even now when he's not traveling very much, people flock to him. You don't have to be Buddhist to flock to want to be in the presence of the Dalai Lama. All sorts of beings flock to him because of that power of that energy. It's a feel-good feeling, big time, blissful energy, big time.
The soldiers that guard him.
The securities and the soldiers.
The
soldiers
with the guns from the Indian army. You should see some of the way they look at His Holiness sometimes. It's just like in awe. They just love him.
Okay, so yes, they do. So we become a more attractive being on the inside. Your outside's already attractive. You don't need to worry about that. It's on the inside. Okay. Yeah. So we put all these together, all these points, makes up this very, very big 11-point meditation. I didn't bring the Lamrim out. I was going to read through that, but I don't have it here. If you know where they are. No, I've got it here. I've usually got it open up here, but I don't seem to have. Oh, that was quick.
Might even surprise myself.
Yeah, so the practice of giving, taking. So we call this Tonglen, giving and taking and giving. And that's what I mentioned in relation that we looked at in relation to the Four Noble Truths, that when we're offering love and also immeasurable joy, that we're giving all our immeasurable joy, in particular, all our happiness and the causes of our happiness to each and every sentient being. So we're visualizing from our heart that we're giving that to others. But before we do that, we visualize the taking, which is taking on their suffering. And when we do that in a meditation, and it's not the only way to do it, but one way to do it, say, okay, let's go back to my back situation. Now, if I had, well, I couldn't have sat down at that point, so lay down maybe. But one way would be to do is to say, okay, I take on my own back pain and use that as an impetus to take on back pain of everyone who experiences back pain. Oh, I could even go further, and every being that has a spine and has pain in their spine, I can go as big as I want and visualize taking all that on and then giving all that healing energy and whatever is needed to heal towards my own back and towards others. So when we're experiencing various ailments of the body, it's quite helpful because we are generating that towards ourselves, but also think that we're generating that towards others at the same time. So it's quite, I find it quite nice to do in relation to specific things that, you know, are an issue right now, because then it becomes more real. Otherwise, I get this warm, fuzzy feeling, oh, may everybody be free of suffering and the causes of suffering. But I'm not looking at any of the causes of suffering. I'm not looking at any sufferings. We've all got something, isn't it? Something going on physically, mentally, emotionally, and so forth. So we can use each and every situation like that. And then the practice of giving generates great love successfully, and the practice of taking is Lama Zopa Rinpoche, increases one's compassion quickly. So it enhances that mind of compassion. And then in the Lamrim outlines, just to mention, this is another way to do it. So we visualize that taking it on. Oh, sorry, I didn't mention the one about, so when we're taking on others' suffering in a more general way, we usually think about taking on their suffering to destroy this me that I point out, not the me, but the self-cherishing mind, which we visualize as like a hard rock, or something solid that cuts us off from others, separates. So it's I love one of the Dalai Lama quotes, watering the mind with compassion. I think that softens the heart, and then the heart opens to others. So watering the mind with compassion. So that's one way we can think that I've just, smashed to smithereens this self-cherishing mind, which enables me then to focus on others. So that can be a helpful way of looking at it. There's many different visualizations. In this one, in the Lamrim outlines, Lama Zopa Rinpoche presented in relation to you go through each of the realms of existence. So you start with the, let's say I'm starting with the hungry ghost. Maybe I skipped a page. Yes, it's not starting. So we could think about the hell realm. So if we wanted to, we could go through each and every one, 8 hot hells, 8 cold hells, 4 nearing hells. There's a lot of hells to go through. Or in general, thinking that, and here in this visualization, Rinpoche says, as you breathe in, so breathing in through your right nostril, as if you're breathing in all their sufferings. And as you breathe out, you're sending out. So, as you breathe in, okay, you're breathing in the sufferings in the form of a very dark fog. Sometimes it says dark smoke, or he says fog. And that becomes a like thunderbolt or laser that strikes this rigid rock at the heart. So this is another visualization, and smashes it to smithereens. All our wrong conceptions, self-existent I, self-cherishing mind, and self-attachment, aversion, everything. And then as you breathe out, sending out pure white light, which is your and Lord Buddha's holy body, to all the beings that surround you, and that each nature of light becomes every cause of happiness for them. It's in the nature of happiness. So then you can feel that streaming into them and relieving them of all their suffering and their distress. And then that light becomes everything they wish for. So there's very different ways we can do that meditation. And then you go through every realm of existence, and so you just keep going. Okay. I don't know if we'll have time to do that, or a modified version of that meditation. Maybe we will next time have time to do that. So give it a go. Because, for these modules, there are meditations that come along with it. Okay. Should we leave it there for today? So we have our dedication prayers here. Page 8, the first 2 verses. Gewa di nyujoda lama sange dragune drowa chika malupa de salagopa sho chanchup centro rimpoche make panam ge puti ke panam pa me payang go ne gondu pawa shu. The next page, page 9, pray for the long life of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Incomparably kind and supreme Tenzin Gyatso, the wish-granting, wish-fulfilling jewel, source of every single benefit and happiness in this world. May you have a long life and all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. Pray for the swift return of Lama Zopa Rinpoche, peerless teacher and assembly of the children of the victorious one, Shravakas and practical Buddhas, victorious Losang, father and sons, along with the lineage masters, all the objects of refuge of infinite lands, please bestow the virtue and goodness of accomplishing this prayer here and now, holding and spreading the Muni's precious and complete teachings Through explanation and practice, you wore the armor of patience that is never discouraged. Incomparable, venerable Guru, to you I make request, while striving single-pointedly for the sake of the victorious one's teachings. The soul gateway, good and happiness emerge, and from other living beings, you suddenly departed to peace. What a great loss. Nevertheless, through the undeceiving truth of the blessings of the ocean of the three jewels, and the great waves of Bodhichitta, of the children of the victorious ones, may the smile of a reincarnation beam in glory for fortunate disciples. Long life prayer for Tenzin Osel Rinpoche, Lord of Dharma, who in accordance with the various dispositions of those to be subdued, makes clear in the light of your well-spoken advice the sacred Ganden tradition, essence of Buddha's teachings. Foremost and holy Lama, to you, for our supreme, we make this prayer of supplication. Lama, please, please live long. Oh, sorry, I missed your messages.
It's all right. It's just to say thank you.
Okay.
The other message is from Maddie. There was a question from Maddie. Someone called Maddie.
Yes, yes. Hi,
Yeah.
Matt. Oh, she gone off, has she?
Hi.
You're there. Okay.
Yeah, I just wrote them in the chat. But
Yeah, I've got it.
Oh, you can see them?
Yeah. So we can have compassion for others, doesn't mean we have compassion for what they do. So this question is about turning into enabling harmful behavior from others. We're not doing that because we can certainly and should, if we're able to, at least criticize the behavior, at least criticize it if we can't stop it. But we have compassion. What I find helpful is the phrase, hurt people, hurt people. So if people are hurting someone else, they're hurting, right? It doesn't mean I think go ahead and hurt people. I can say, no, that's not okay. And if I were in a situation to be able to say to them, you really need to look at what's going on for you, in whatever form I can do that, I would, right? So the behavior is not okay. We have compassion for the fact that they are suffering whatever they're suffering that would cause them to have that. So this is, if we say, as we do, may you be free of suffering, and the causes of suffering, if they're free of that, they are also not going to cause themselves suffering because they're free of that themselves. Is that helpful? And then still, you need to do what you can do in the situation, whatever you can.
Yeah, that's very helpful. Thank you.
Is that having compassion for ourselves? Yes, only skillfully intervening, definitely. And if that hurtful behavior is towards you, I don't know the situation, you remove yourself, right? You don't put up with it.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. See you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye.